sci-fi radiation does all kinds of bad things.
Hello viewers and welcome to the Craft Mask, home of custom action figures and toys. With only Charisma 3, I am somehow your host, Charlie. And tonight I'm recreating the best character from the worst TV adaptation of the best worst video game series. For those of you who don't know, Fallout takes place hundreds of years after a resource war between China and America causes a nuclear apocalypse that turns the world into a mashup of Mad Max and Grease. Except without the cars, so, like, neither of those things, now that I think about it. Don't think about it too hard is the writer's motto for the entire show. Doesn't matter. The plot that everyone really watches the show for is this magnificent bastard. Cooper Howard, aka the Ghoul. Ghouls are people mutated by radiation. They're nearly immortal, but they have a nasty habit of turning feral if they don't get special medicine. Can relate. And they get a lot of prejudice for it.
You know your kind ain't welcome here.
Well, maybe not. But I'm gonna make myself welcome.
Point is, Cooper is not the only ghoul. The show glosses over it, but if you or I met someone who had a demographic for a nickname like, "Oh no, look out, here comes the Caucasian," we might rightly ask, "Excuse me, what the f*** were you getting up to when you earned that title?" Well, I guess it's better than Walton Goggins' nickname throughout most of his career. "Oh yeah, that guy from that movie, yeah. What's his name?" All joking aside, the man is immaculate in this role, and I'm hoping the show's threadbare logic can hold itself together just a little longer so we can see Cooper in action just a little bit more. But even if they pull a Joel on us, at least we'll always have Season 1. That said, let's get on with our own show. Our base for this project is one McFarlane Gunslinger Spawn. And our first goal is to get rid of all the McFarlane-y bits. Good riddance to these spiky f***s. Salvageable? I don't know. I'm keeping him anyway. His factory hands were really cool, but I had no choice but to cut, sand, and acetone them smooth. Somehow, there wasn't a compatible pair of hands in my entire collection. It's not just Hasbro that hates standardized parts. A bunch of his clothing was attached only with a tiny dab of glue and came off with hardly any effort at all. But then, for some reason, I started hitting resistance and f***ing hard.
Stupid hat! It's got a bloody huge curse on it!
Seriously, f*** this hat in particular. His bracers and hat were glued on so strongly I thought they might actually just be solidly molded. Ugh. If it didn't endanger his head, I would have chewed on this goddamned hat just to have the pleasure of shitting it out later. How many of these motherfucking things do I have in my own collection? Huh? Fucking McFarlane toys that fall apart. Yeah, I'm trying to purposely take something apart and they I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm good. So good. We're moving on. Had to shave down his pecs because this is Walton Goggins, not Michael Jai White. Anymore. Besides, it's the post-apocalypse. Nobody should be so well fed as to get this swole. Ahem. Ahem! But while I was at it, I noticed Spawn's torso felt, off somehow. So I had to poke around with a tiny light to confirm if it had a ball-jointed body or something more complex.
There was a flaw just below the chest plate.
It did turn out to be a ball joint. It just felt hella weird because it was set at a hella weird angle. This guy is rigged up so he can't do a single ab crunch, but for some reason he can do the full matrix. Why? The Ghoul's look is iconic in its simplicity, so I toned down some details on his right leg, before realizing I couldn't do the same thing on his left leg. The plastic details on his left leg were really gummy, and it was a massive pain in the ass just to keep the test cuts neat, so I just left it alone, knowing the jacket would cover it up. But now I kinda wish I just left the other leg alone too. Oh well. Similar to the gouge I cut on his thigh, I also went around the whole figure and roughly beveled the areas with exposed pegs, so that later on I could put some epoxy in those parts and they would blend in more seamlessly. Speaking of filling things out, filling out new sleeves and pants was going to chew up a lot of material. So first I bulked out those areas a bit with some PLA, which also helped form a rigid structure for other materials to sit on. My first attempt to fill in was with polymer clay. Too bad, in my haste, I shoved the heat gun too close to his pant legs, and the surface bubbled worse than a bottle of Nuka-Cola shot through a junk jet. So instead of fabric, I got a cut of Brahmin leather. Big time fail. So I took it as a sign that I should not do his limbs the lazy way. So out came the epoxy clay. I always do the initial mix with gloves to avoid the toxicity of the unmixed resins, but I work the details without gloves sometimes because they just get in the way. And I'd be irresponsible not to say that this isn't good practice. There's no right away for resin poisoning. Once pressed on, I did more or less the same thing as I did with the polymer clay, pressing cylindrical tools in an alternating direction to simulate bunched up fabrics. And then lightly pressing on a coarse fabric to give the surface some fabricy texture. To give the hat a leathery texture, I rolled a scrunched up chunk of tinfoil over the surface. Amazingly, I managed to do all of his limbs and his hat in one sitting, without getting caught in a never-ending loop of fix one thing, smudge another, repeat. And I left the figure to sit overnight. The next day when it was all cured up, I scrubbed at the edges of the epoxy with a wire brush to bring back the texture that got filled in by the epoxy slurry created when I was using water to smooth out the edge. Not that I needed water, because the sweat from my brow would have worked too. Doing hobby crafts in summer.
It almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
I don't have the crafting perk to work with fabric at this scale, so I sculpted his shirt and waistcoat from polymer clay instead. But carefully this time. The brown I started with was super soft and sticky and kept coming out of the roller with air bubbles, so I mixed a metallic blue clay into it. Generally, metallic clays are firmer and drier, almost to the point of being crumbly. I think it's because of all the mica powder in them. At any rate, while that can make them miserable to work with in their pure form, they're great for consistency mixing. On a side note, the two clays were manufactured on totally opposite sides of the world, yet they got along just fine. Polymer clay for president! Sadly, you can't bake polymer clay while it's still attached to a plastic model, so we had to seal off the figure with some foil and sculpt onto that. I did take the foil off early to bake his collar independent of his waistcoat because this goddamn collar hates its own existence. I can relate. I was really tempted to redo his torso peg, to give him a better ab crunch. Or any f***ing ab crunch at all. If I gave this toy to Jobby the Hong for a review, I'd be afraid he might throw it and me directly onto his barbecue grill. But it's way too much technical work to reconfigure this abomination. And what really chaps my ass is that the manufacturer didn't even need to set things to this arbitrary angle at all. I looked all up in there and I just can't see any f***ing reason. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm good. So good. I'm just working through a stimulant shortage. But it's okay. It's not like I need it. The labor is fulfillment enough. For Cooper's face, I could just let him be a generic ghoul.
Not to be racist or anything.
They all kind of look alike anyway. Don't blame me, blame Bethesda. But this is the ghoul we're talking about, so I had to hit at least 80% Walton Goggin-ness. And what a tightrope task that is. It has to look like Walton Goggins and a ghoul, so I have to get the Walton parts right and then ghoulify the surface without distorting the Goggin underneath. This would be a hell of a lot easier if he was a ghoul from an earlier Fallout. And I think I got it eventually. How, I'm not too sure. I sculpted from references at every angle I could get, but never managed to get any one angle to match exactly. I'm sorry I can't provide more educational commentary. I really don't understand how sculpting works. As far as I'm concerned, it's just some magical bullshit that I occasionally win at. Like Caravan.
What the hell is even that?
I was considering making a pair of faces with different expressions, but there just wasn't enough space. He'd need a whole other head. And those are in really high demand. So I settled for this slightly cocked smile so he can look wily from one side or a little annoyed from the other. His two most defining vibes, really. Amused by this joke called life. Or absolutely done with your shit. That's right. Your shit specifically. You hear me? Quit your shit. What a disgrace. You know I used to forge my own knives.
Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Oops, wrong franchise. Once the face was baked, I thinned out its upper inside as much as I could so it wouldn't block the magnet in his hat from gripping onto the metal plate in his head. With a metal plate and magnet combo, I can pose his hat however I need to without the hat being pressure fitted to his head, which would for sure just chip the paint. With all of the major sculpting out of the way, I went around the figure filling in any gaps, blending transitions and covering up all the immersion-breaking exposed parts. I left this bit for last because it really requires the specific characteristics of Sculptus stuff. But Sculptus stuff is a pain in the ass to make in any quantity. The unmixed parts want to stick to just about everything, and excessive exposure to it carries a risk of developing an allergy, which is something I really can't afford. Maybe if I had good healthcare, but I really can't afford that either.
America!
Keep your eye on this space because I will do a deep dive on this material one day. Unless I die somehow. Or I forget. Like I almost forgot to texture his neck. No smooth skins allowed. Oops, I loosened up his foot joint when I was taking him apart. The fix here is to soften up the center peg just a touch, and then crush the f***er with a vice grip. Don't worry too much about it. When these things go, they're gone. Find a replacement or solidify it and move on. Fixes for joints are largely a matter of luck. You can do everything by the book and still end up with a joint that won't hold a pose. So be bold! If you've been wondering where his jacket went, it's been commandeered for another mystery project. The ghoul's actual jacket is so much more simple, I'd rather make him a fabric jacket and save the toy jacket for something else then struggle to make the toy jacket look like the Ghoul jacket, and then still need to have to make another jacket later. Savvy? I started on the jacket in the wrong way. This time on purpose. Honest. I skipped making a pattern and just ad-libbed it on so it would have this ragged, badly put together feel. I mean, there's a good chance that this jacket is over 200 years old. And does this glorious specimen of a man-mutant look like he's a skilled seamstress? No. No, he does not. And neither am I. So this will work out perfectly. Welcome to the Craft Mask. It's an alternate dimension where you can lie and tell the truth at the same time. I may have lost some of my sanity while sewing because even the simple stuff that I was trying to do was not working. About 100 resets and 3 machines later, I realized I was threading the needle from the left to the right and not from the right to the left. And that was the cause of all the issues.
Rule number 1. Read the manual.
Or was it right to left and not left to right?
You gotta be f***ing kidding me.
Oh yeah, the rest of the video. Buttons. You like buttons, don't you? I've got a few buttons for you to press.
I make nothing. Zero. Zilch. By the time I pay all my scientists, all my people in my research department lab coats, it's a wash.
So help a guy out, press some buttons. Are they labeled danger? Doesn't matter, press them anyway. What could go wrong?
Allahu Akbar.
I almost sculpted all the buttons for the jacket individually. Luckily, my stupidity experienced a temporary lapse. Instead, I baked a little clay wormy dealy and chopped it up into little discs. I evened out the discs on some sandpaper and then poked them with the needle-nosed tweezers to emulate the little buttonholes. Also, an old-ass jacket should be missing buttons, yes? So I left a few out. On purpose. Honest. To make the jacket posable, I threaded some wire into the seams, and lastly, to make the jacket look old as heck and prone to a little target practice, I used various files and sandpapers to distress the tail end and punched a bunch of holes here and there. I may have gone a little overboard, but nothing that a bit of glue couldn't stabilize. And even if the glue did fail, I could always patch the jacket and it would still just work.
All of this just works.
A Bethesda thingy needing patches? Unheard of. Do you get this feeling like sometimes you're just bored with the idea of doing things the obvious way? So you just go and experiment with the not so obvious stuff just to see what happens?
I do too. What is that?
I know that pleather works, but at small scale it just kind of looks like. So to avoid using it, I did a science. I combined flexible polymer clay with a nylon ribbon, and I bet on the clay being baked before the nylon had a chance to melt. And shockingly, I was right. Does the end product have the combined sculptural specificity and tensile strength of both materials? Well, no. But it looks the part. Now, there is a version of this figure that came with a lever action rifle. Lever. 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 Lever, I hardly know her. But tragically, only the one with a minigun was on sale.
Well, you know what they say. Us cowpokes, we take it as it comes.
Not to worry, this is what 3D printing is for. The lever action isn't exact, but who cares? There's only one gun in Cooper's arsenal that actually gets the crowd going.
Big iron on his head.
I modded this replica so you can print the two halves and just glue them together, or wire up the hinge to get the gun to open and close. The pinhole on the one I printed broke, so I kinda had to fix it. But I went back and modified the 3D file so that it might not happen to any of you who might want to download and print it for yourselves. Which you can do if you're a member of the Craft Mask Patreon. The lever action still doesn't do shit. Trying to make that thing functional was giving me brainworms. Almost as bad as RFK. So I just left it as one solid piece. If you watched the Snake and Ocelot video, you might remember me saying this.
But man, I really wish I had more leather know-how.
And tonight, I proved that I meant it. For the holsters, I decided to dive into some real leather work to expand my hobby skills. And also because the polymer clay was being an absolute b****. What the fuck? The leather I found is a tad too thick for this scale. And I can only thin it out so much with the tools I have. Which is why I'm not revisiting the bullet belt. But at least I don't have to worry about it disintegrating in a few years like the pleather does. Maybe I should revisit the belt. Anyhow, with all that out the way, the ghoul needs a few more things to help him survive the wasteland. Like a bottle of Nuka-Cola, which I recast from some toy soda bottle using UV resin and some glow-in-the-dark pigment powder. With drinks sorted, he needs food.
I never thought I cut the chicken in half with a saw in my workshop.
And for that I chose a mutant chicken. Now I could have given him something more ready to eat, but
ass jerky don't make itself.
oh boy, time to paint. How many colors do we get? Do you know what franchise you're in? We got brown pants. We got brown jackets. We got brown shirts. Marching through the streets of America. Man, I'm just trying to find funny memes to put in these videos, and somehow that leads me to regret the entire existence of the internet. Can't help but laugh that somehow a video game predicted something as wild as an AI president, and yet here we are. Now, I've been pretty critical of the show. Probably because of their financial entanglements with China, Amazon showrunners rewrote the TV plot so that the nuclear apocalypse was actually caused by a false flag attack, part of some conspiracy between all of the US megacorporations to reduce competition? At the time, I thought it was about the dumbest money grab conspiracy ever committed to fiction. And then this year happened. Seems I owe the writers an apology. They clearly understand human nature better than I do. Could it be that I am on the spectrum? Is this finally how I discover that I am autistic?
FBI, open up!
Feo fuerte y fumar.
We all bleed the same stuff. We all bleed the same stuff.
War never changes. I do this shit for the love of the game. Well, now that is a very small drop in a very, very large bucket of drugs. Well, I guess basic training ain't what it used to be. I bet that outfit makes y'all feel like a big man, don't it?
Now I'm here in El Salvador. I mean, the wellness camp, and I'm being treated very well. They even gave me this cool membership tag that's not at all an explosive color. And they let me keep my mask. And all my teeth. Honest. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and even sign up for the Craft Math Patreon. It helps the channel and pays for my human rights lawyer. Because capitalism. This video was actually available on Patreon months before it came to YouTube, so that happens too. Now, my viewers, go forth and